Hello and welcome to On the Bench, the only weekly sports discussion TV show for Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire right here on Estuary. Joining me in the studio tonight, I'm delighted to welcome one of the directors of the Sports Memories Network, Tony Jameson Allen, and the man behind the mask himself, the mighty mariner, Andy Carr. Thank you both for joining us. Also coming up on the show this evening, Tom and Stu will be here to answer your questions that you've been sending in via Twitter, and Matt Denson had the privilege of attending Barnetby Football Club's Sportsman's dinner, where he bumped into some familiar faces, footballing legends John Aldridge, Windass and Mark Lever. Stay tuned for that, but first let's take a look at some regional results. Here's Team Talk. Hull City had a cracking 3-1 win over Liverpool on Sunday. Jake Livermore, David Mailer and Martin Skirtle's own goal ensured the Tigers took all 3 points. Hull are at the Emirates tomorrow to face top of the league Arsenal. Cleethorpes Town lost their spot at the top of the league with a 1-1 draw against local rivals Grimsby Borough. Nathan Empson opened the score in seconds into the second half before former Grimsby Town striker Andy Taylor nicked an unlikely equaliser with just 10 minutes left. Cleethorpes playing away at Teversall tonight. Grimsby Town or Colville have been drawn to play Barnet away in the second round of the FA Trophy. And finally, life without Brian Laws is certainly sweet for Scunthorpe as they move up to 4th in League 2 with a 3-1 win over Torquay. One from Sam Winnell and an own goal from Aaron O'Connor. Hakeeb Adelakan's first ever senior goal sealed the win for the Irons. Next up is an away trip to Wickham. Some ups and downs for our regional clubs over the weekend, but certainly some cracking memories for Hull supporters to take away from the KC Stadium on Sunday. Tony, you're a big believer in creating new memories, especially through sport. Just tell us a little bit about the Sports Memories Network. Absolutely, and the Tigers fans certainly have some memories from the weekend. We're a social enterprise. We work with older sports fans, using the power of sport to engage with particularly older guys who might not necessarily like to engage in the traditional activities that are offered to older people in day centres and care homes. And we use sport, we use archive images to stimulate memories, working with all sports fans, but particularly those living with dementia. And people living with dementia have real problems with the short-term memory, but the long-term memory remains intact throughout the course of the illness, through sorry, I've lost my way there. You okay? Through a kind of long-term memory, I suppose. Yeah, the long-term memory remains intact for a great length of the illness, but it needs triggers. And there's nothing really more powerful than iconic images of sport to trigger those memories, because we build up a bank of incredibly powerful memories of following our favourite legends or the clubs that we follow. And if those memories are unlocked, it can have a really dramatic impact on older people who are living with dementia and memory problems. Definitely. I mean, it's a really fascinating topic and subject to kind of move forward with. What was the original thought process behind starting up the business and also the charity that's come from it? Well, there was work done in Scotland which we were involved in using specifically just football as the focus for activities. And very briefly, one case study from that is a gentleman who was attending a day centre who had dementia, and not a lot was known about his background other than that he'd played a bit of sport. It was through using images of Scottish football from the 40s and 50s that a quite remarkable story came out, because this gentleman who very little was known about, turned out he'd played for Celtic, he'd played for a number of clubs, but as a 20-year-old he'd played for Scotland, and he'd actually, the story came out through using the images and building up the research, that he'd represented Scotland at Wembley in front of 75,000 fans. The match was played during the war, so no cap was actually awarded. So there was no record of Bill having played for Scotland online. He actually marked Tommy Lawton out the match, and this was in the days when England used to win 5-6-7-0. And he actually marked Tommy Lawton out the game. The game finished 0-0, so he was one of the few Scotsmen to actually not lose to England at Wembley. And his partners in defence that day, to the left of him was Matt Busby, and to the right of him was Bill Shankly. Wow. Good company. It was just absolutely incredible. So with this kind of thing, do you have a stigma behind it? Because there's the issue of mental health that people have this kind of misconception of. Mm-hmm. And also, like you say, you generally get men that come to you through the Sporting Memories Network. Does that sort of transfer to women? Do you still get people interested through that? How do you approach it? Because it is a difficult subject to approach, I suppose.
Yeah, first and foremost, the project is centred on sport. It's for sports fans, and that's regardless of whether they have any kind of diagnosis of any kind of illness.
Oh, okay.
And the groups that we work with, organisations to train staff and volunteers to actually facilitate the sessions, and we provide them with all the materials. For instance, we do a weekly newspaper, this one being particularly pertinent, the headlines around Bill Shankly becoming Grimsby Town boss. We get people of all different backgrounds and interests, but with a common interest in sport. And the groups that we run, once the group's up and running, you wouldn't know if anyone in that group has a diagnosis, to be honest.
I suppose that's the beauty of it. Well, thank you very much for letting us know about the Sport and Memories Network.
Thank you.
And we'll let you know how you can get involved a little bit later on in the show. So thank you very much for that to Tony. Next up on the show, here's Tom and Stu to answer your questions in A View from the Estuary.
Hello and welcome to this week's View from the Estuary. Why are people against Grimsby Town's new stadium?
In theory, a new stadium's great. Obviously, the chairman might be looking towards the future, to a League Two sort of place in the next few seasons, maybe next season.
Maybe even higher than that. You look at Doncaster, Hull, Rotherham, Brighton, they've all moved up with new stadiums, so who knows? Yeah,
but you do have to take into consideration the average gate is 3,000 or 4,000. Obviously, we know against Scunthorpe was a sellout. That would be great every week. It's not going to happen, as Paul Hurst said. So, 4,000 top gate for a league match, and he's looking at a 14,000-seater stadium. Does it make business sense if you're not going to fill all those seats?
You get Hull in there as well. They only had around about the same crowd as what Town does now. When they got their new stadium, it trebled, so it could work. Can Grimsby Town get promoted this season?
Paul Hurst has just been named Manager of the Month for November, so that's in honour of his achievements so far. In the last month, they're fourth in the league at the moment. They're in the FA Trophy, got a replay there, and the FA Cup as well against Northampton Town. So obviously he's doing great. It's a good season up to now. Liam Hearn's injury may have something, in terms of promotion. It might affect that. He's not bringing any more players, he said. So that, might have something to say in the promotion chase, but you don't know.
It's also good to see as well because Paul Hurst is stuck by Grimsby Town through thick and thin. He's lost his co-manager, but he's thought, hang on, I can get this team places, and he must have thought that, the fans respect him, we respect him. Do you agree with Asim Allen's quote before the game versus Liverpool? No, I think it was wrong. If it was to create an atmosphere, that is to be seen. But you can't go out there and say that people, just because they're chanting City till we die, that they're hooligans and that they can die as soon as they want. It's barbaric.
Well, yeah, you just listen and look at the actual quote. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can't say that about the fans. The ones who come to see your football club play week in, week out, away as well. They're travelling all over the country with the club. You don't want to alienate them because they're not going to come and spend the money.
Not ending, but saying from what you've just gone on, he said that they can go find another team. We only want people who are watching football. He's alienating the fans, right this very minute, by even changing the name.
And obviously, he may have created an atmosphere, but it was the wrong one.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a bad vibe from the fans. But then again, it may have contributed to the 3-1 win on Sunday.
But maybe the 3-1 win as well has kind of made him think, actually, I'm going to keep it as Hull City. But that remains to be seen, surely. Well, that's it from us for this week. If you want our opinion on any sporting issue, you can get in contact with us on Twitter at Ask Estuary or on Facebook now. Just search Ask Estuary.
Thanks, Tom and Stu. We look forward to receiving more of your questions this week. If you want to get in touch with the guys, you can. You can tweet them at Ask Estuary, or if you want to contact us in the studio, you can tweet at On The Bench TV. Join us after the break for more from our guests and see how Matt Denson got on when he met John Aldridge.
If you want to ever make it to football, that's exactly the route to go.
So you took the nice
non-league, playing like School and games with Trinity.
Yes.
Welcome back to the show. We're joined in the studio by Tony Jameson Allen from Sporting Memories Network and Andy Carr, the mighty Marionette from Grimsby Town. Andy, in the midst of everything that's going on at Blundell Park at the minute, how do you feel the season's weighing up currently?
Well, it's looking fantastic, really, on all parts. Obviously, on Saturday, a little bit of a letdown. Obviously a 1-1 draw against Colville. You'd have expected to win that with them being 2 leagues, below. I know there was quite a few changes. And in return, that obviously causes a headache with a potential backlog of fixtures now, with obviously the Welling game being changed to the following Tuesday, and it's something that you really don't want in a season. And I know there's quite a few fans out there that have got a bit of a negative vibe about that, in concerning that it will take the mind off the bread and butter, which is the league.
And there's been quite a lot of controversy in the media recently around Blundell Park and the opportunity to have a new stadium built. What are your thoughts on it?
I think the one thing we do need is a new stadium. There's no question about that. A lot of people seem to think it will never happen. I do think it will happen, at some time. It's just trying to find the right place for it. There's always going to be fors and against, whether it's on Pigs Parkway, whether it was at Greatcoats. They've got to look at, whether this is a viable option. I'm not going to sit here tonight and say, it should go on Pigs Parkway or it shouldn't. They need to do the research and look at it, but we definitely do need a new ground.
And obviously we've got Thomas Drew saying that bringing in more money for the club is always going to be a good thing. Surely you've got to agree with that one in terms of bringing in more revenue.
Without a doubt, the facilities at Blundell Park, are so outdated. The main stand is the oldest stand in football. It's a wooden stand. It all needs updating. And I know there's plenty of parents out there and families that may come more to Blundell Park if the facilities were better.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to talk to you actually, Andy, about your sporting memories. So whether it's Blundell Park or otherwise, is there anything in your childhood or in the last kind of few years that stood out to you recently?
Yeah, there's so many memories. Following your local team at Blundell Park. Doing what I've done for the last sort of 14 seasons and before then, probably the one that stands out most and always will be is the night at Anfield. When 7,000 Grimsby fans went crazy when Phil Jevons scored in the last minute. That for me is the pinnacle of all my memories, ahead of Wembley, in any of those games.
And Tony, you've actually had quite a lot of town fans sending in their memories of Blundell Park and other games. Has that been quite interesting for you to read upon?
It's been fantastic. There's been a number shared already by former players, John McDermott, Dave Boylan, which is going to publish one from Matt Tees. But fans have already started sending in their favourite memories as well. And oddly enough, Anfield has been mentioned more than once.
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite heavy on their minds. And so it's quite important for them to send in the details to you. So how can they actually do that? Is it through Twitter? Is it through the website?
They can send them through Twitter, but if they send them through the website, they can add a bit more detail to their favourite memories and put them into the memory bank ahead of the game.
And when's this game happening?
It's the 19th of December. It's the home game against Kidderminster Harriers, and there's going to be lots of activities around celebrating the history of the club.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like a really interesting day for the team and for yourself, so good luck with that one.
Thank you.
Thanks again to both of you. Now, if you happen to be passing by Elsham Golf Club on Friday evening, you may have spotted a few familiar faces wandering around. Well, joining Barnetby A.F.C. for their annual sports dinner were footballing legends John Aldridge, Dean Windass and Mark Lever. Well, when we told Matt Denson that he'd be going down to join them, he could hardly contain his excitement. Here's his report.
Come to a charity night tonight for Barnetby United. They've got a bit of a fundraiser going on, and there's some big names in football. I'm not too sure who, but I'm told if we stick around, we might just get 1 or 2 interviews. Let's see who's inside. So, on Estuary TV, a little bit of a legend with us today. We've grabbed a few minutes just before he's about to go on stage and do some speaking with the legend himself, John Aldridge. Thank you very much for taking some time out.
Pleasure, no worries.
Now, a little bit about yourself. What you're doing in this part of the world?
Yeah, but that's to come up and do a little bit of speech for the charity event. So it's always nice to come up to this part of the world.
What I like to find is there's a story behind everybody. Now, obviously, reading a bit about yourself, you've had an autobiography in that out. But really, you was at Oxford, and then you've obviously got the big break into Liverpool. How was that, the transition for yourself?
It's like everything in football, you take every step at a time.
Yeah.
I was a toolmaker by trade. I got picked to play for Newport, old 4th division.
Yes.
There for 4 or 5 years. Oxford, we were on the ladder up. took that, we got to the first division and
Yes.
won what now the Capital Cup with them, and then Liverpool came in. So if you want to ever make it to football, that's exactly the route to go.
So you took the nice
non-league,
Yeah.
playing like St. and games with Trinity,
Yes.
South Liverpool, so it was perfect.
Yeah. So you've heard that. If you want to do it, start low. Don't always aim too high. Start low and build up. That's what you say. This is the legend himself, the local legend, Dean Windass. Dean, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. What are you doing here? Tell us what you're doing.
My friend's obviously is involved with the football club,
Right.
and I do a lot of afternoon speaking myself. So I've got a night off, so I'll come down and see how John Aldridge does, see if he's better than me, and have a couple of beers and have a bit of food.
What we're trying to do is encourage people to actually get out there and try the game for the first time. What would you say to people that's actually thinking about getting out there and trying the sport?
You just need to get out there. You need to get off your PlayStations and your laptops or whatever, and go out there and go and play. Because I think, obviously, showing my age now, people in my generation used to be out all the time and it was never in.
Absolutely.
But nowadays, it's like everyone's in the bedrooms, you need to get the family sort of side of it sorted out, and everybody needs to be out there playing.
So, Mark, what you'd say is get yourselves out of your bedroom, onto the field and start kicking the ball about.
100%.
Thank you, Mark.
Cheers.
I can't ask for any more advice than that.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot. Cheers.
We've just been privileged to witness the other side of football, the other side of sport. These people that used to play the sport at a very high level. Look at you, Dean Windass, and you, John Aldridge. They'll speak to you about football all day and the sport. They're encouraging you to get involved and get off your chairs and get involved with the sports that you like. Doesn't matter what it is. Listen, we've been privileged at Estuary TV today to see some of these people up close and personal. Thank you very much. And I tell you what, if there's anything to take from this, it's enjoy yourself in sport, and who knows where it'll take you.
Thanks, Matt. Now, finally on the show, we wanted to turn our attention to the contentious statements made by Hull City chairman Jameson Allen, who branded the club's own fans hooligans and threatens to sell the club if they refuse to accept the name change, rebranding the club as Hull Tigers. Tony, what's your thoughts on this one, first of all?
Well, I've a number of relatives who are City fans and have been season ticket holders, and if my 13-year-old niece is a hooligan, I find that hard to swallow. She knows what the history and heritage of a club means to her, and she's backing the fans on this one.
Definitely. I mean, saying this before such a big tie as Liverpool, what's his thoughts behind this, do you think, Andy? Is there any thought behind it?
I don't think he's thought about what he's actually saying, if he's thinking about it, because it's absolutely atrocious. You know, Hull City fans don't deserve that. Football fans, you know, anywhere don't deserve to be called hooligans. And I think he also quoted, you know, if they want to go and die, go and die. What kind of individual does that? Because he's got a bit of money and he's done that. Is he allowed to say that? No, he's not.
I mean, we've seen before where teams have been rebranded and, you know, different things. In Newcastle, we've had that. But actually, it's been made such a big thing in the media, and rightly so. Where do you think Hull can go with this one, Tony?
Backwards. I think they should just think about, you know, what fan power. You mentioned Newcastle United. You know, there was such protests against the renaming of the stadium, and actually, you know, fan power won through in the end, and it came back to St James's Park because the history and the heritage of the club, you know, the fans make it, and that football is all about making memories and respecting the history. Yeah,
definitely, and I think the fans bring the history as well as the team do. So hopefully we can find some happy medium with Hull City going forward. Well, that's all we've got time for this evening. Thanks to Tony, Jameson Allen and Andy Carr for joining us in the studio, and thanks to you for watching. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.